Hello everyone, how are you doing? This is Faith at Faith and Books. Sorry, I jiggled the camera a little bit there. I thought I would do a quick video about two books that fit into There's No Place Like Rome, even though I cheated and I read them in February. So wait, do I have my engine on? I'm going to turn off my engine because I feel like the air is blowing and it's getting in my eyes. All right, I'm not feeling 100% today. There's a lot of activity in this parking lot. I usually get here earlier and it's quiet, but there's a lot of cars driving around. Anyway, so the two books that I have read, I finished SPQR by Mary Beard. I've mentioned this multiple times, and this is going to be the last time I'm going to mention it, I think. And it's SPQR, A History of Ancient Rome. And I listened to it on audio, and I have mixed feelings about it. So first of all, what I appreciated about it, I loved getting a comprehensive, cohesive review of Roman history. Now, she stops at the end of the first millennium. But it starts with Romulus and Remus, the myth about the founding of Rome, and she explains what that meant to Roman culture, and she talks about the seven kings, the first seven kings, and she mentions Numa, what was his name, Numa Pompilius or something, who started the Roman religion or is reputed to. And she talks about the other one. She talks about Tarquin, Superbus, who was such a bad king that's what ended them having kings, and that's how they went to the Republic. She talks all about the Republic and what it meant, and she talks all about the paradoxes, this idea of libertas, or liberty, but it was a slave culture, and it was really a plutocracy. It was really the rich running everything. You had the patricians and the plebeians, the development of the Senate. And she talks about all these figures, Scipio and who else? I mean, she talks about all the big figures, and then she goes into the end of the Republic with Julius Caesar, and onto Augustus, and then many emperors after that. So it was really good at that. It really put everything in perspective. So I really enjoyed that. And it really expanded my knowledge too. I mean, because I'm not that well versed in it. And some of the things that I really enjoyed about it was I was at the same time as reading this book, Medicus, which I'm going to talk about. And things that I would learn about in SPQR would be reflected in Medicus. For instance, she mentions that they started celebrating the emperor's birthdays as, kind of national holidays or something, and that was in Medicus. Or she mentions that Hadrian was the first emperor to have a beard, and they wonder, why did beards suddenly become popular when they never were before. And that's also mentioned in Medicus. So there were fun things like that. Like, I love it when books kind of connect like that. So I enjoyed that. But I have to say, I found the book irritating. Now, first of all, a caveat, which is Latin for beware, is that I'm not the best audiobook listener. My attention goes in and out, and then I'm lazy. I don't want to go back and re-listen like you would if I have an actual book. I find this cumbersome in the Kindle too. If I miss something, I want to be able to flip back and find it, and it's harder to do it on the Kindle, and it's too annoying or cumbersome to do it in audio, I think. So I think I probably miss things. Like, I don't listen as closely as probably I ought to. But also, when you have an audiobook, you have the person reading the book as an extra layer between you and the author. And I don't know if it was that Mary Beard's writing style bugged me, or if it was the narrator that bugged me, or if it was a little bit of both, and just it compounded the way they interacted made it annoying. So my problem with it was that Mary Beard she's snide. She has a snide tone, and she would present somebody like Cicero and talk about him, but always kind of sneering at him a little bit or trying to undermine his authority, which I get as a historian, because the thing about Cicero is there's lots of stuff that historians can use from his writings happen to survive, and so he is a big source for them for Roman history. And I get that Cicero was writing, probably had his own agenda, and you're learning about him personally and his letters and that sort of thing. But you don't have to take the attitude that Mary Beard took, which was trying to undermine him, to sort of paint him as somebody who was, untruthful, self-serving, even if he was. If she just did it for him because, she was be talking about all the things that he said and then made a remark about that. But there was this contempt. I kept sensing this contempt. And I at the time I thought it must be so hard to be a historian of ancient Rome and really hate one of your major sources. Like, is Cicero not cool? So is that what I didn't get it. And she's like that all throughout. So she's always just saying these sort of sneering things or things she just has a certain level of contempt. I found that really odd and irritating and made me not trust her. And here's the thing, I know that she is considered a great classicist. Like, she's a great historian and people look up to her. So I know she knows her stuff, or I assume she knows her stuff, right? But I simply didn't like her delivery. And was she doing it because maybe she thought that would make the subject matter more palatable to regular folks? Like, it felt condescending. So, and sometimes it was just mildly irritating, and sometimes I didn't really notice it, and then other times it made me turn off the book. Like, I just couldn't take it anymore at that time, and I needed a little break from it. So it was weird. And then the other thing was that the reader, and her name is Philidia, I always want to say Law, but it's not, Nash, which Philidia is, by the way, a great name, but she has a very proper English accent. And it's one of those English accents that to my ear is so proper in English accent, it easily sounds snooty. And so with the snidiness of Mary Beard's writing and the slightly snooty English accent of Philidia, whatever her name is, Nash, it made it even more irritating, I think. And so so I just found it kind of unpleasant to listen to. I would like to know if I actually sat and read it as a book, maybe it wouldn't come across like that, but it did come across that way to me. And this could be completely subjective. And there were just other things, like when she got to the Christians, the first thing she says was like, did Jesus have a wife and children? What? Is that like her nod to the Da Vinci Code? Is that the caliber of people she thinks she's writing to? I don't know. And she would just do stuff like that. So I just had problems with her way of writing. I just did. I'm sorry. I've just started Rubicon by Tom Holland. Writes in a different way, and my hopes are that without having a narrator in between me and the author, and with me reading it actually, and maybe he expresses himself differently, that maybe it'll be a more pleasant experience. However, I again have to say I really valued the information that I got from the book and the organization of it. I think that part was really well. Another weird thing, though, about Mary Beard is she kept saying, and in the next chapter, I will talk about such and such. Like, was she writing it thinking it was going to be audio? Because I don't need you to tell me that as an author. You just give a chapter heading. Just say, okay, and now I will talk about how the poor really lived in Rome. You don't have to do something introductory to switch. I don't know. So anyway, so that's my review of SPQR, and I'm not going to talk about it for at least a couple of weeks. Okay, and then the other book that I finished, which I just found delightful, was Medicus by Ruth Downie, and I've mentioned these a couple of times before, but these are just so good. I really like them because they're not too graphic, but you definitely feel how gritty and how bawdy and how dangerous things were, and without it being too explicit. And so I enjoy a writer that has that deft touch. I also love the character of Medicus. I was reading reviews of it, and somebody said he reminded them of Harrison Ford in a way, his sense of humor and his kind of bewilderment and his, I don't know, something about his personality is kind of reminiscent of sort of quintessential Harrison Ford. And his housekeeper / love interest slave, whatever, Tilla she's a great character too. And there's two different cultures, the Roman culture and the native Britain culture, and how they're interacting. It's just so well done. It's so well done. And the whole way she creates the atmosphere of this border fort in Britain, in Roman Britain, and how the natives interact with the Romans and how they view each other, and the whole way she sets up the murders, because Medicus he's always stumbling into a murder, and then because he's the doctor, people ask him questions like, how did this person die, do you know? And he's doing these post-mortem, and then he starts to ask questions, like, how did this happen? And so he always winds up accidentally investigating murders. So it's just a really, really good series. I'm really enjoying it, and I really think that she did a lot of really good research. And now I think they've come out with even more information since she wrote these, which I think was in the 2000s. So not everything might be, completely accurate anymore. And also, I think there's a lot of stuff that they don't know, and so she sort of has to make that up. But I kind of trust her as writing historical fiction and trying to be accurate. And this is what I really delight in historical fiction. I love it when an author can, within the parameters of, the limits of the time, the technology of the time, the thinking of the time, the customs of the time, that sort of thing. If they can take that limit and cultivate a wonderful story out of it, and not lose, not be anachronistic, and not lose a sense of the time. So sometimes you'll read books and they feel really modern, but they're just sort of very superficially set in another age. But this really feels like it's ancient Roman Britain. So I really appreciate that. And I think that's always the problem I have, I think, with fantasy and even science fiction. The science fiction might be limited by science, but I feel like they could just make up stuff, like if they write themselves into a hole in the plot, they can just make up something. Whereas with historical fiction, you really have to know that time and place, and your story has to fit those contours. So I really appreciate this. So I am really enjoying rereading these books. I'm into the second one now, Terra Incognita, and it's a little bit grittier. But it's very good too. So, all right, so I'm going to wrap it up because I'm almost up to 15 minutes. So I hope you're doing well. If you are reading something for There's No Place Like Rome, please tell me in the comments. And I'm so excited about this event. It's really, really fun for me. So, all right, so happy reading. Take care.